into the Cypher. Prepare for another all-nighter.
On the Talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON.
So, this game 3, which is interesting because as Saturday closed out, every series, whether it was East or West, was a team was leading 2-1, which I thought was interesting.
That was great because it lets you know that these series are competitive.
Yes.
No one's really going to run away with this thing.
So what that made me sit back and think, and with the Bulls in perspective, well, here's the thing. If you tell me pick one series where you feel there's a clear defined winner, as much as it pains me to say that, it's the Chicago-Miami series. The Bulls don't have enough to pull this series off. Matter of fact, that would be the biggest upset of the year. Even though this feels very much like a championship game because of the energy, the passion, this is now becoming one of those matchups, even in the regular season, that people want to watch. But they're losing their composure. There's just not a healthy team. You've got Heinrich out. Matter of fact, let's say you change the complexion of this game if you've got Heinrich starting, if you've got a Luol Deng. I mean, because remember, with Deng not being on the floor, you're giving up a minimum of 15 points.
Exactly.
You know, and you got to realize in that game, the Bulls bench scored 8 points to the Heat's 36. Now, obviously, Norris Cole was a large part of that with 18 points. So the one luxury, and we talked about this very early in the season, the one luxury that's gone with this team this year is when they disbanded the bench mob, they lost 2 components, the ability to score and to play a full 48 minutes with 2 teams that were physical and could really spread out the floor. They're probably feeling that more right now than maybe even Derrick Rose not being on the court.
Exactly, because you have Jimmy Butler being thrust into the starting lineup, and Jimmy Butler's been playing great all season, but you can't have a guy play every minute of every game when up against an NBA champion like Miami Heat. Now, as you mentioned, Luol Deng is out. If he's playing, then that gives Jimmy Butler some rest.
Right.
And so you never know. With basketball, you maybe need a minute or two just to regain your composure and your legs to get back into the game. But with Jimmy Butler, he doesn't really have a time to relax. Now we're seeing Marcus Teague getting a few minutes here and there.
Finally.
But when he comes in, Miami traps him right away. So
Right.
Nate Robinson has to come right back in. So you have Jimmy Butler and Nate Robinson and Joakim Noah as well, basically playing the majority of the game.
Right. When you look at the breakdown, what was interesting is the one starter that had the least amount of minutes in Game 3 was Carlos Boozer. He only had 28 minutes. Well, almost 29 because he was like 28-52. And that's because, unfortunately, Boozer keeps getting into foul trouble. Which, you know, here he is. He's trying to step up his defense, which we all know is soft and weak in the first place, which I stopped harping on that a while ago because Boozer is what you see is what you get.
Exactly.
And when he rolled in Chicago, you knew he was not a defensive juggernaut. But you wanted that 20-10 from him is what you were expecting. So unfortunately, him getting into foul trouble so early in every single game is reducing his minutes, which is also, you know, they're having to rotate more.
Right.
And that's interesting that, you know, the starter who actually makes a pretty big paycheck is getting the least amount of minutes.
Well, he's picking up little ticky-tack fouls, and we've seen it since he's been in Chicago. The little push in the backs. He gets those fouls. He picks up at least 2 push in the backs every game, whether it's trying to get offensive rebound. He knows he can't out-jump anyone. So I don't understand what's going through his head because he knows he's going to be called for that. Officials are going into the game saying, okay, well, we know Boozer's going to push somebody in the back at some point in the game, and he gets caught every single time.
So when we were at break, we're kind of, obviously we still talk when the commercials are rolling. And you made a comment that you think that Coach Thibodeau's comment to the media that got him a $35,000 fine was very strategic. Talk about that.
Well, I'll just say right now, $35,000 is a lot of cash from somebody that really doesn't have any money. But even for guys that have money, $35,000 is a lot of cash. 35 stacks for a comment. That's what Coach Thibodeau had to put away or give to the NBA.
That's some people's annual income.
But what I love about that comment with Coach Thibodeau, anytime you've seen a head coach of an NBA team in a playoff series come out and criticize the official, they know what they're doing. It's a strategic plan. They're playing mind games with the NBA, David Stern, and also the officiating crew. Because that next game, they get the majority of the calls. They get the benefit of the doubt because they know that the officials are on notice, basically, putting it. Tom Thibodeau said he knows what's going on. He's not a fool. So he understands that Miami is going to be the benefactor of so many calls in the game. We saw that in Game 3. So Game 4,
True.
If we see a Chris Bosh, a Dwayne Wade, or LeBron James pick up 2 early fouls, one of those guys is going to pick up 2 early fouls in that first quarter. I guarantee it. It always happens in the NBA playoffs.
It makes sense, you know, and I agree with you when you put it in that perspective that it was strategic because I think he saw the energy and some of maybe the mental lapse that was happening, like the technical foul that Noah got for shoving, you know, Anderson off of Nate Robinson. When you watch that play, it was clear that it wasn't intention that Anderson was trying to follow Nate Robinson. It was just kind of how it played out on the floor.
Exactly.
But his energy and he was just irritated and he shoved him. I think he's trying to reel it all back in. So in a way, it is a good buffer for the players, but he definitely has to sit them down because now you've had 2 games back to back where you're looking at ejections, technical fouls. It's like he's got to bring them back in, and as Dr. Jen said, kind of reset where they're at mentally. Because to me, if they lose this mental focus, not that they're going to win this series, but they don't play consistent or better basketball.
Well, they have to put up a better fight in Game 4, and I believe that Thibodeau set his players down and said, hey, I just got fined $35,000 trying to come to you guys. But now we have to be more smarter in our approach to the game and stay away from the cheap shots and just play Bulls basketball. So we saw what they can do in Game 1 when they just outworked Miami. That's what they have to get back to in Game 4. Because, again, if they lose this game tomorrow night, it's over.
Oh, yeah.
If the Heat go back down to Miami up 3-1, it's going to be over.
Yeah, they needed to put a win on one of these home games. That was clear. And the thing about it is they did a lot of things right that they did in the net series. But I think it was their lack of mental focus that cost them that game, especially in the fourth. We actually have a caller here, Tommy, who is a frequent caller on the show. Let's go ahead and get Tommy on. Tommy, you're on AM 1690 WVON, the Sports Cypher. What's on your mind?
I want to just say hello to you guys as usual. I love you to death. I just want to say this, and I hope that the Bulls players are listening. I am just so absolutely proud of every last one of them. I mean, I've called into the show, and, everybody's got their thing for Boozer and all the rest of it. But you know what? Talk about a group of guys with a lot of heart, a lot of integrity. At the end of the day, guys, you got to be able to put the ball in the hole down the stretch. And, sadly, it's just not there. And my hope and my prayer for those guys is that they know that there is at least one Chicago fan, if not 1,000 more, who really appreciate what they've done for those of us who believe in basketball this season, because a bunch of misfits and people who would normally count it out counted themselves in. And maybe that ought to be something that ought to echo through our community, that, the least of us, if we just get together, we may not win, we could sure let the other guy know he's been in a hell of a fight. Love you guys. God bless.
All right. Thanks for the call, Tommy. I think at this point, there's not a single Bulls fan that is not proud of what this team has accomplished.
For sure.
The fact that they made the playoffs, probably got a higher seed than most people expected. I think there's a little discontent with the whole Derrick Rose situation because those are that mixed emotions. But the one thing I've said continually is start the season how you finished it. So if your goal was to be in the playoffs, you play until it's over. So exactly. I don't think there's a single fan that is not happy because this has been some good basketball to watch.
It really has. And one of the things that I love about the Bulls and what Tom Thibodeau has done since he's been here, he gets the team to move the basketball. And we see Joakim Noah being put in great spots to make great passes, whether he's in the high post at the elbows or down on the blocks. With how he and Carlos Boozer work with each other has been great. They're tough, they're physical, they play great defense, but in the end they have to put points on the board, and that's the roadblock that they're running into right now. But if you're Chicago, and you have to be proud about what they did. They took Brooklyn to 7 games. A lot of people counted the Bulls out even in that series,
True.
Given all the injuries and what was going on with Chicago. They took them to Brooklyn in Game 7, won that game, came out to Miami 2 days later, beat the Heat in Game 1, and put up a good fight in Game 2. Well, I'm not going to say Game 2 because we all know what happened in there, but Game 3, they put up a good fight in Game 3. So, I mean, it's the epitome of Chicago. Blue-collar town, work hard. We're going to beat you up a little bit.
True grit.
and give you your all.
And you can't expect more than that. And I think for everyone who feels this team has nothing to compete for next season, I don't think they're watching this team.
Because it's going to be a big offseason. It's going to be huge.
And actually, I have something that when we kind of wrap up talking playoffs that I want to put on the table because I think it could be an interesting acquisition.
Okay. Because
I'm already thinking acquisitions because something came on the radar. So
okay.
I'm curious about it.
All right.
So I think that it might be the one piece to the puzzle that could make an immediate impact. Now, the one thing I've griped about, even before the playoffs, is that Marcus Teague got no development really during the regular season. And then, lo and behold, come the playoffs, you need him. Now, for what it's worth as a rookie, he hasn't made too many rookie mistakes in the playoffs. I tweeted the other day when I was watching Game 3, I can't believe that traps still work in the NBA level. It drives me crazy. When someone gets trapped, I'm like, what are you doing over there in the first place?
Exactly.
It's a fundamental. What's going to happen in that corner? So that bothers me. But overall, if they had maybe invested more minutes in him and developed him, I'm not saying that he would be the difference maker, but I think obviously he could contribute more because you can tell he has a little indecision when he comes on the court and he's looking around and the shot could be his shot, but you can tell he doesn't want to take it. So Marcus Teague, I felt, actually this is a big development for him as well. It's the playoffs, so obviously that kind of moves you up a couple notches, but I don't know how he plays into the master equation. So you don't think the Bulls will win the game tomorrow?
I don't think so. It's with Miami Heat and how LeBron James has played since Game 6 in Boston. Now, what he did there just kind of springboarded him into that closer. And then a lot of people gave him a lot of flack for not being able to close out basketball games. But in Game 6 in Boston, he just went all 40-plus points. I think he only missed about 6 shots in that game. But then he went to the Olympics in London and closed out games for the Team USA to win the gold medal. And that just springboarded him to just this monster that a lot of people feared. It's kind of like with The Last Dragon, Bruce Leroy, when he finally found the glow inside of him and he got that orange aura over him.
Right.
And sure enough knew it was over. That's LeBron James right now. He has that orange glow around him, so he's not going to stop. And Game 4 on Monday, I don't think that Chicago's going to have enough. If Miami is smart, they come out and attack the Bulls right away.
But if the Bulls are smart, they have the same. Here's the thing. I think you have two teams that have a tough as nails mentality.
Yeah.
The Bulls are going to want this game because I think they realize the journey gets a little bit more difficult once they leave Chicago. To go back to Miami and have to win a game is going to be difficult. So I'm going to say I think it's at least a 50-50 split that they can win this game tomorrow. Especially, I don't know if Deng is coming back or not. I'm not sure where that's at. I doubt it. Heinrich is kind of always, I think it's been a game time, but I doubt you're going to see him either. But we'll see how it works out. But overall, I'm going to say I think it's a high probability if they can be consistent and not give up too much in the post. They rebounded great offensively, defensively. If they do the things well that they did in their first series and in that first game, the only thing that they're not doing well at is, one, they're not getting to the free throw line enough, and when they do, they're not converting. You got to go with the free points. You can't leave that on the court. So, I mean, there's some areas they need to tighten up, but let's be honest, if you suck at free throws, it doesn't really get better in the playoffs. That's just the reality of it. It is what it is. But let's quickly shift over and talk about the other playoff series that's going on in the East, and you're talking about the Knicks and the Pacers. Why do I just look at these two teams and I feel like it's equally yoked, and I feel like it's a matter of what team comes out and plays consistent basketball through the duration? Because for some reason, it doesn't strike me that Carmelo Anthony is going to transform and take over a game the way you talk about LeBron.
Well, with Carmelo Anthony, he's nursing injury with that left shoulder. But if the New York Knicks aren't making shots, then they're done. And we saw that yesterday when they were playing it in Indiana. New York just wasn't making any shots. J.R. Smith was off. Carmelo was off. They don't have the inside presence like the Memphis Grizzlies have with a Zach Randolph and Marc Gasol. So New York needs to knock down shots. Now with Indiana, they have both inside and outside with Roy Hibbert, David West, who's basically a goon on the blocks, and everybody in the NBA knows that.
He's a bully.
Yeah, he is.
He's straight up a bully, for real.
But with the Pacers, they in my eyes, I think they come out of that series and they're going to play Miami in the Eastern Conference Finals. Now I think if things go Indiana's way, looking forward, they could come out of the East. Just depending on looking at back on how they played against Miami last year. I think they've added some pieces to this roster this year that could beat Miami. But getting back to the Knicks-Indiana series, New York just really needs to make shots, and they're not doing that.
And that's the thing. Like, J.R. Smith is not quite as on fire as he was, coming into the playoffs. They're very inconsistent, and now they're trying to work Stoudemire back into the mix, and that might be more of a detriment than an attribute for them at this point in the season. So I think go with what works, and if you can occasionally get some minutes from him, then do it. But I think trying to make him a central focus might be the thing that can cost them this series.